keep getting the spinning wheel of death. Okay. Yeah, I just keep getting the loop-de-loop.
Oh, that's
Open.
terrible. Yeah. YouTube is not working today.
Well,
Is that it? Right. I see intro a little bit.
the first stream gave us such high hopes.
I know.
Everything went so smoothly.
Well, this is my fifth one, and I had no problem until now. And live chat is not even working.
Now, it might be on YouTube's end tonight.
Yeah, whatever that is going on. My
It
live.
looks like it started back up.
Yep, I
I
can
mean, the quality
see.
is really, really low on my end. It's playing at 240p
I
and
see.
having trouble.
Live chat is not even working. Let's see. Can anybody hear me out there? Hello, can you see this? Yes. I see it on the chat, but hi. Let me refresh the page.
I'm not even getting live chat on my end.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just refreshed the screen and I see Sophie. Hi, Sophie. She's third timer here.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Live chat's working now.
All right. But the stream is... Thanks for being here. Some stream issues. Yeah, it's still spinning. Yep, spinning. Chat is working, but
I'm not getting chat on my end.
I had to refresh the screen, and then it is certainly
100%
is.
YouTube being frustrating.
And we have no other ways to... Stream kept looping a short while ago, but now it seems fine. It is crashing on my end. Connection is good.
Oh, it's showing like the video's only 8 minutes long and the stream is done.
That was the first one, so I ran a completely new one that is 3 minute in right now.
Oh, okay, that might be something that is the problem.
Yeah, and then
Hey, I'm looking at the wrong stream. That's the problem.
yeah, but the current one is 3 minute in and it is looping, or the spinning wheel, or I guess it's going okay. I do see it on the phone.
Seems like it's working. I'm getting audio, I'm getting video.
Okay. Maybe we leave it at that and just keep going. Sorry for everybody who's gonna watch this on recording, or anyone who's trying to get on.
Yeah.
There's lots of confusion. There's a bit of connection issue on my end. Even just monitoring the feed. So it seems like on the phone at the least it is running. So I'm just gonna let it run and see how it goes. Sophie, I know you're you are just watching, and I'm unable to monitor. So if you can chat, then I can possibly see your message. Thank you for keeping up with this technical difficulty. We were intending to talk about some YouTube stuff, And then I guess this is the hot topic: how to make YouTube work on the streams. Okay, Sophie is hearing us. That's good. I'm unable to see how many or if anyone's watching, so we'll just roll with it. We'll roll with it, and then okay, maybe I get to record our session. So if something goes south and the stream doesn't work, um, then I can just post it as a recording. How's that
Yeah,
sound?
that works.
Yeah.
You
So
can edit out the bed. Ah, it just quit on my end.
okay.
Pooped out.
I see it on my phone, so we're gonna roll.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, so I am recording and streaming at the same time. So if something goes south, we can post this. So we're gonna act as if we haven't done this before, but we had a little bit of technical difficulty for anyone who's watching this later on. So we're gonna just try and roll and keep going. So Ted here is here again with us, trying to have a little chat. Today's topic, we want to cover a bit about my backstory on starting a channel. And um, my channel is still very small, but I think I have few things that I can talk about. And Ted here was interested in learning a few things, or perhaps not learning few things, but he was interested in starting his own channel, as well as just learning about and maybe hear some of my story. So we're gonna go ahead and um, let Ted sort of ask me questions if he has any. Otherwise, I can just kind of roll with how I got about starting one.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've got a million questions out of the gate. As a sort of novice YouTuber, um, my channel right now is my office channel. It's where we post content that we've generated for clients that we're allowed to post and things like that. It's Voxel Vision's YouTube channel. If you Google Voxel Vision, you can find us. VoxLVISION. And it's mostly ArcViz content, pretty bog standard stuff. So what I'd like to explore on my end is a little bit like what we talked about the other night, last Tuesday, with the business side of ArcViz, and talk to the people, because I hear this a lot. It's like, hey, how do I make money with renderings? Like, that's not a thing you can do. It's just what I do at the office. It's how do I generate as a freelancer revenue for myself? How do I find clients? How do I write proposals? I mean, we talked about proposal writing a little bit. I guess my problem right now is it's like there's a lot of video ideas out there. I don't know how to take all of the mess that is my brain of thoughts and ideas and consolidate it into a 5 to 10 minute video of, very specific points, and make it interesting that somebody's going to want to watch it, that it's not, trying to listen to your accountant. Um, you know, so how do you make these things interesting, man?
Well, I mean, how do you make it interesting? I cannot answer because that is my daily struggle, and that's sort of the thought that I always go through, when I'm making the video, even after shoot or even before shoot, right before posting it, it's like, what do I put down on the description? What do I say? And what works and what doesn't? I'm still all working that out, and I'm sure thousands and millions of people on YouTube is trying to
Hmm.
work that out. But all kind of story goes back to, or at least my understanding goes back to, like, do what you think is more interesting to you. And if it is interesting to you, then there's someone out there on the vast platform of YouTube who's gonna find it interesting and is sort of, I guess, advice that I can give you. Uh, I don't think my style of video is necessarily interesting. It can be informative in some points, but I talk slow. I'm not a huge monstrous jokester, or I'm not like overly enthusiastic. I know there's a lot of personality on TV and YouTube and all people out there who's very optimistic and enthusiastic and have a lot of high energy, and which is what a lot of people sort of look for. Whereas I'm not that, and I'm sure a lot of people love that sort of personality and what they have to show them. But I maybe I was just being hopeful that there's some people out there who's not really looking for that sort of thing. Maybe they don't mind the slow talker, or maybe they just find me downright annoying and they won't watch, and that would be it.
I doubt that.
Well, I
I
mean,
doubt
I
that.
I have received comments like, "Oh, you talk too slow," or "Just get to your point," or "I watch your video at 200% speed, the twice fast speed." Like, I get that. I play my videos like twice as fast too. Like, I wish I can talk faster, but I just don't, and I can't formulate sentences as quick as some people do. I'm not born natural speaker, and I get um, anxious in front of cameras and talking to people in public. So, and also, uh, some people may not realize, but English is my second language. So I'm generally trying to spend extra time formulating sentences in my head. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, what's your first language?
I learned Korean as my first language, or
Okay.
I guess I was born in the States, so like I guess you could kind of say, but my parents are both South Korean, so
Okay.
they speak
Okay.
Korean as first mother language. Therefore,
Yep.
and I lived most of my childhood in South Korea. Therefore, I was more comfortable speaking Korean to begin with. But professionally, I was trained in English, so
Hmm.
any professional language or professional words, sentences, and vocabs. I don't know how to say architectural stuff in Korean. So it's an interesting mix. But either way, some of the jokes I have to formulate in sort of different language, if you may. So that's just something that I have to go through. But interestingly, on YouTube, there's a lot of international viewers and people who cannot really pick up fast English as I do. So or other people do.
I
So
think it helps. I genuinely think it helps. So I watch your videos. Uh, I always have something playing in the background. I don't know about other creatives, but for me, and it's funny, I work in a co-working space. We're a small studio. We've got three or four guys anywhere between three or four guys in the office at any one time. But we've also got like other people in the office that come in and out. We've got a neighboring team, Adashi. They're a development company that does some really cool stuff. But Alex, who works at Adachi, is always coming over. He's like, "Are you watching another movie? Aren't you? Don't you ever work?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've always got something playing in the background. I have to have some kind of distraction while I'm working because it makes things flow a little bit better." I don't know if you're this way, but I find that having some content moving, some audio source in the background, very cathartic and helpful. So a lot of the time I'll play your videos if I'm depending on what
thank
work
you.
I'm doing. I'll play your videos if I'm doing like specific lighting tasks because you're calming, your voice is very like smooth and I can understand what you're saying and you're like talking about the pros and cons of a specific laptop. So it's not something I'm specifically interested in, but it's kind of that distraction and I like hearing about it. Something will catch my ear and I'll be like, "Oh, what's he talking about?"
Mhm.
Um and then on the other end of the spectrum, like I listen to the guys like there's a YouTuber 1000 who's an artist. He's a graffiti artist who's like super high energy and he's always talking and he's moving. And if I'm modeling something, I need to have him in the background doing something listening to that. So it's really interesting to see the different dynamics within the um, YouTube community. Um, and then I also follow a lot of, you said there's a lot of international YouTubers, and you've got an international audience as well. There's a few guys that I follow that are international that are really interesting to listen to. Can't think of somebody off the top of my head right now, but it's interesting hearing other points of view and the different content that other people create. But your videos, they kind of focus on the tech and the ArcViz, and some of it is sort of repetitive for me because I know it already, but nice to listen to in the background. And sometimes I learn something because I'm like, oh, I never really thought about that. I should check that out. So, but um, yeah, you put out some really nice, clean content, like really well produced content.
Well, thanks for praises, and I do try and put some thoughts behind how I deliver my message or what I want to put out, and all that is throughout planning phases and then editing phases, and even like
Hmm.
putting, little subtitles and titles to text
So,
into the video.
how long does it, like on average, how long does it take from start to finish for a video for
It's
you?
it's usually uh, the planning phase goes quite a long time. It could be because if it's like something like a laptop, then you have to like loan it. You can't. They don't like hand it out to you, so I have to loan it and I have to return afterwards. Therefore, there's like specific time frame they want to hit, or there's a release time. So planning phase could go months to like half of a year, if anything. It could be as quick as like a week. But as soon as I shoot, I usually shoot on the weekend. So I just um because I can actually find some time to set aside. So I do recording, and then on that during the week at nights, I will do a little bit of edits, and possibly by Friday, or maybe Saturday or Sunday. So I may shoot, but I may edit like the week before video. And then over the weekend, I usually post or publish the latest, and I have been doing this quite often, is like Monday or Tuesday. So again, my last weekend video is delayed because I actually had a family event of my sister getting married. So obviously I couldn't spend any time in editing or anything like that.
Hmm.
So it's been pushed back. So Monday's gone. Today is gone. So I'm gonna have to spend some time during the week to do a bunch of editing, and then possibly do posting afterwards. Maybe in the later in the week, where if I still can't find anything, then it may be at the end of the week. So it depends, but shooting over one day or one planned day, and then editing throughout the week whenever I can find time, it really is a lot of hours in terms of
Yeah.
editing. Shooting, if your shooting took a long time, the editing is going to take a long time, either because you have too many waste, or the content is so much that your video is going to be very long. And like having a set time doesn't really work out for me because I want to deliver the message, or I want to cover all the content. But my message box is popping. I'm just making sure nothing really is happening. But yeah, so that's just some of the things that I have to go through to make sure things actually happen. And uh, I would say anywhere between editing time could be like 20 hours for a video,
Ooh.
if if it is something that's kind of, so like I think editing style has to do with how much time you end up spending too. And as you
Yeah.
hone your skills, obviously a rendering could take anywhere from because you have to model and then you have to render and then there's a post processing. You have to do revisions because your client doesn't like it. Same exact thing. If it's a sponsor video, then you're gonna have to go back and forth. So
Yeah, yeah.
that all depends on because at some point you're your own client, so you're gonna judge like final product. You did it. I wish there was that another shot of me explaining this. I may go back. I usually don't.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but
That's
that's something that you have to. And it is weird. I mean, you're wearing this shirt and talking the whole time, and then there's a 5 second of you with grown beard or a different shirt, then it's weird. So I even went through trouble of um, not washing my shirt that I wore that day until the video is out, so I can actually wear it again and then reshoot if something happens.
oh,
I've done
see,
that a
I
few times.
can't. I don't know if I can do that. I think when if I do this, it's gonna be um not nearly as well produced as yours and not nearly as well thought out.
No, but again, it's weird because I didn't want any of that either. Like I want it to be casual. I want it to be candid. I did
I
everything
feel
to.
like it starts off that way and it always evolves into, oh, I learned this thing, so I'm gonna do that. And I learned this next thing and I'm gonna try that. I mean, how long have you been doing this now?
Numbers always years, dates fly out of my head, but I think it is about 3 years now.
Okay. All right.
I was in like sort of the monthly issue schedule. Like my oldest video is like I don't know 8 years old or something like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
very old, but that was just a video that I made for a different purpose and decided to post it on YouTube.
Yeah, wasn't it like a tutorial type video
Yeah.
for like V-Ray or something?
It was one for SketchUp, and that has, I think, till this day has the highest view. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not a work that I'm necessarily proud of. It was somehow ended up on SketchUp's Facebook page, and
Oh, that helps.
yeah, so like it was like high sell for some time, and that's why it has a high view count. But it is so old and wouldn't have produced, and that was all produced in one shot. There was no editing done. That was like way before I was into. I remember like recording it like 2, 3 times, and like, okay, this has gotta be it, and I just posted it.
So, my first YouTube video that I ever produced and developed currently has 139,000 views and was posted on March 11th of 2015. Um, this this is my first foray into YouTube. It was if you Google V-Ray for SketchUp Quick Start or V-Ray for SketchUp Ted Vitale, it'll come up. Um, I don't think it's very good. I also have no idea what I was doing at the time. And Chaos Group at the time had hired me as a an artist, as a um, I don't know what I was at that point. A technical lead for support, technical support lead for V-Ray for SketchUp. Um, I had no idea what I was doing when I put this thing together.
I, you know what? Even if I watched something that was like a couple months ago, I still tell myself like I had no idea what I was saying.
Yeah, maybe what I do for my first ever YouTube video is a Ted reacts to his first YouTube video.
No, that will be a high sell. It will be really interesting for me. For longest time though, something that I was thinking was to go back to some of my student work and just kind of react to my student work. I thought it would be
Oh God.
kind of interesting task, but then also kind of embarrass yourself. I don't know if
I
I'm
don't
ready
know
to.
if I have, yeah, I don't know if I have the self-confidence to do that. I look back, my biggest problem with my like design work in college is my spelling errors all over the place. I went to art school and I don't think spelling was really that focused on. It was more design and like concept. And I went back and I read through my thesis. I'm like, who proofread this? How did I get this approved? I don't recommend it. Please don't look at it. It's not good. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely been interesting seeing your channel progress over time. Um, Also, I've noticed your camera keeps focusing on your microphone instead of
Yeah,
you.
I need to keep pushing this a little bit
It's
further away. It doesn't recognize my face as actual face.
uh, but yeah, it's one of those things where I really admire your YouTube channel. There's a couple other YouTubers that I'm friends with that I've met along the way at conferences and things like that before they were YouTubers. So it's been really great seeing different channels grow and how they've grown, and what they've grown into. Um, so it'll be interesting to see, if I wade into the YouTube pool, what comes of it. I think my fear, like I said, is producing content that nobody will watch and it just floundering and not being useful. But we'll see. We'll see. It'll be a process. It'll be a learning process. It'll be good because I need to do it anyways.
I mean,
So
that's the thing. Like, somebody out there, I feel like will have some interested in some weird niche thing, and
yeah.
here's sort of what I have. Like, I watched ton of other content, and sounds like you watch some other YouTube stuff too, but
Hmm.
I consumed more so than what I had produced for I would say good year or so. I looked at different channels, different styles, sort of benchmark, and they have nothing to do with architecture. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
sometimes it's sort of lifestyle, sometimes
So here's a question. What are your like top three go-to channels right now? Top three, top four go-to channels that aren't necessarily ArcViz, that are just channels that you really enjoy.
a lot of tech
Hmm.
related things. For when I was first starting off, I watched some Pokemon Go a channel. I, shout out to Nick. He's a guy who's in Cali. I haven't watched his video for a very long time, um, but he was basically knocking off Casey Neistat, which is Big Boy.
Hmm.
Casey Neistat is
Yep.
the first sort of daily vlogger who kind of really took off. I believe he moved from New York to LA. But he's sort of the birth of all vlog and YouTube space. Everyone just kind of crunching to
Hmm.
post a lot of videos, and he kind of and for a long time I've watched Peter McKinnon. He's the photographer who does vlogs. He's pretty big too.
Hmm.
He's Canadian. And so like you look at some of those lifestyle photography maybe type of, but they do like some tech reviews and such.
Yep.
So like I can see how they voice it, how they edit. I try to benchmark those things and like see how I can apply that to what I'm interested in, what I want to tell, and then how I can kind of spin it off in a way that it makes sense for both me and my audience is sort of what I had planned. So a couple of things that I outlined was just looking at some other architectural channels is the fact that there's a lot of great tutorials out there. There's so many V-Ray, SketchUp, Revit, other type of architectural software tutorial, anywhere from like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere. There's great tutorials out there. But one of the thing is, it is highly formatted as well as
Hmm.
it's usually just a screen recording. So I cannot connect with this person who's talking behind the screen. So that was something that I wanted to kind of draw the difference from. So I wanted to
Yep.
show my face, it was the first thing. And I also wanted my channel to be named after me rather than the channel content because I didn't want to bound myself to a specific type of content. I wanted to be a bit more fluid. It could
Yeah.
be AEC, it could be tech, it could be my life. I didn't know where I was going exactly. I still don't know, but
Make it
um,
loose and
make it
figure it
loose.
out.
But I wanted people to see me as Joseph or Joseph Kim rather than the guy who does these weird tech or software trainings
Hmm.
or AEC. Like they know me now as a person. They know I'm a slow talker. They know that I'm just this face. They know that that I have this sort of style of presenting. So I wanted to connect
Interesting.
with them, and that's basically the very motto or the central spine of how I came about and how I set out. And I try to stay true to that, and I feel like I do, but obviously there's gonna be some variations. But till this day, all of the editing style, the way I present myself, I feel like that is sort of how I set myself up and then keep going with.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that you kind of talk about a few different people. So, I'm a surfer. I've been surfing for the better part of 20 years now. And I follow a lot of surf channels. But I also follow a lot of maker type channels and tech channels. So those are kind of like my top three. There's a guy, Brett Bailey. He's got a channel that he does really, really, if you like surfing, go check him out. But more importantly, he does a really good kind of life type, lifestyle type vlog. Well produced, well edited. He's an amazing surfer. That helps. And he just does really good content. Um, because he's a great filmmaker too. That's the other side of that. Is he? I believe he studied film in school, which is why his end product is so well developed, scripted, and generated. But him, there's another guy out of the UK named Alex Steele. If you like watching people make things, like if you like working with your hands, he is a phenomenal blacksmith. And I don't have any tools or desire to blacksmith anything, but he is phenomenal to watch. He makes really entertaining content. Um, the way he goes from start to finish on a project is really impressive and really interesting because he tells a story about how he screws up constantly and it's like, okay, I did this thing and that was wrong, I'm going to throw this out now. So he does some really impressive content as well. And then on the tech side, I mean, there's always Linus Tech Tips, everybody knows him.
I watch him
um,
constantly, by the way.
oh yeah, I mean, that dude must produce. He's a powerhouse. I mean, he's one of the bigger tech YouTubers out there, and he is phenomenal. I mean, he's got a team of like 60 people, so I don't know if he's like somebody to look up to for YouTube as much as he is a well-oiled machine at this point. If you go back and watch his older videos, it was just like a total shit show. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to bleep that out. It's a total mess show. Um, that you go back and you look at what he used to do, professional it was. It's hilarious to see that compared to what's current. So it's nice to see a progression there. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I follow. I tend to gravitate towards the vlog types. If
Because
you
it
like
is
VF,
entertaining. You connect
yeah,
with
it
those
is.
people.
It is. But from a more technical YouTube side, I mean, Corridor Digital, do you follow them at all, or
Sounds familiar, but
they
I
do a lot
do.
of VFX content, like breakdowns and how to do things. They're really interesting, and I would definitely recommend anybody check them out. And then um, I'm probably butchering his name. Alexei Lebrov. He's also a really interesting VFX YouTuber who kind of covers a lot of the technical and business side of ArcViz and well, not ArcViz, but visualization and VFX content.
You see, I
Um,
look at more of like photography and tech related videos than.
you would like him then. I think you would really like him. I'm going to send you a link to him, and maybe we can post it post some of these in the uh,
Link in the
comment
description.
section.
Yeah.
Link in the description. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, this is why I'm not good at YouTubing yet. Um, so yeah, I
The
think
whole
his
YouTube's down, by the
content
way. I can't.
is it? It's not.
Yeah.
It's everything. Okay, well, it'll be released at a future date,
Yeah.
edited and bleeped for your, pleasure. um, but yeah, I think a lot of the VFX content is really interesting. Librov is really interesting from the sense that it's well produced, but it's also really informative, kind of bridges tech and VFX. So yeah, also he's got a really interesting Russian accent. So, and I might be wrong about the Russian part, but he's got a really
Different
Eastern
foreign
European
accent. Yeah.
accent. So he's it's interesting to listen to. Um, so yeah, and I could list off a dozen more that I really enjoy, but
Yeah, I was gonna look at my history of YouTube just so that I can name a few, but the whole YouTube seems to be down. This is what a day. But yeah, I look at a lot of there's a lot of computer related tech channels that I watch,
hmm
including Linus to I don't watch any of like Gamers Nexus. That tends to be a bit too techy, but Hardware Canucks.
Oh, I haven't watched a Hardware Canucks video in a long
Yeah,
time.
but I do watch a lot of computer hardware reviews and content. I love his production style, which I can never match for, but just there are things that you can pick up on.
Yeah,
Also, Kyle is another YouTube Bitwit.
Bitwit.
Yeah,
Yep,
Bitwit. I love his like parody content. It is
he's funny.
He is funny, and it's not only informative, but it is entertaining to watch.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why like I see how people could connect to more enthusiastic or more sort of energized, entertaining people. But I understand like I'm not that, so that's why I gotta spin it off in a way that it makes sense to me. But there are a few things that I can still pick up, like how to do vlog, or how can I do a bit more loose style of video. And I try to, but I always go into this sort of dark road of like trying to make it a bit more perfect, although I never planned
hmm
out to be. So it's the constant battle. And at the end of the day, you've got to record, you've got to post it, and it's
Yep.
never going to be perfect. You're going to always look back and say, what was I doing? But either way, it's still
Yeah.
up there. People still follow you only because people follow you because you're not TV channel. People
Yeah.
follow you because they understand you're human,
Because
you
you're a
make
person.
mistake, and they can relate to you. And that's why what I wanted to like draw the difference to, because there's ton of tutorial content. I still do tutorial, but I still show my face, and that's how I kind of voiced
hmm
my style and what I want to. And I wanted to show myself. I wanted to tell them who myself is, and possibly I'm a likable personality by some other people that
You certainly are.
well, thank you. But in a way that I'm sure my genuine sort of production and genuine style of videos will get to somebody. It was my take.
Well, with the exception of YouTube going down this week, I know I spoke with Austin the other night, and he mentioned that he would definitely be interested in joining us one night to talk the technical side of ArcViz and visualization and VFX as a whole. So, speaking of having personalities and interesting people and having a more discussion related topic related thing. I definitely want to get him on the conversation if you want to have it. because I think he would bring some interesting insight into both the YouTube conversation, because he doesn't run a YouTube channel and he's kind of a I don't like to talk to other people kind of guy, but he also has a really interesting point of view from how he approaches projects and things like that. So I think it's, this dynamic, this kind of personal interaction is really exciting and really interesting. So
And again, it's just us talking and talking about things
exactly.
that we're interested in, but you'll be surprised how many people actually find it interesting for
Yeah,
themselves too. And
exactly.
they don't mind playing that in the background whilst they're doing other tasks and actually
Mhm.
listen to what is going on. And I feel like that sort of content is worthwhile. We should kind of spend time on. And again, most importantly, it is fun for any of us talking about it and making a
Yeah.
video of. And I think that's the most important thing because YouTube, in terms of revenue or anything like that, the return is terrible. The amount of
Yeah.
hours that you put in, it is not something that you should consider as like a main business.
Yeah.
It's just you wear yourself out and then you'll be in the ground for very quickly. So
Yeah.
that is sort of like I guess what I had thought about when I started off. Another thing though is I was trying to be because I really genuinely like teaching and sharing of what I know. I really appreciate sort of the systematic approach to teaching. So to deliver the message or deliver what I want to teach or go over. I like coming from the basic up to that point, and I try
Mhm.
to always voice in that way. And I found that when I do that sort of thing on more of like a corporate setup, meaning at a big firm when I worked at, I try to have lunchtime meetings so that we kind of go over and I'll
Good
try
old
to
lunch and learn.
yeah, lunch and learn. But there's not that much of an interest. I felt that a lot of people are not as interested. Here, I'm going to spoon feed all of this information for all of you to digest. These like pure gold. I know this.
So it's interesting. So I had a client reach out to me and he's like, "Hey, do you think you could do a lunch and learn with us and focus primarily on the basics of visualization?" They don't want to learn how to visualize. He's frustrated right now, I think, with his team because they just kind of like get a view and take it, and that's it. And he wants to talk about framing, lighting, orienting the camera and focus point and things like that. And then I'm like, there are 100,000 YouTube videos on exactly what you're talking about. But you know, he wants me to present it to the firm, because we do a lot of work with this firm, and he's like, I'd like to improve our in-house content because we're always going to use you as a fail-safe for like the production type stuff, but for the quick turnaround, my client needs to see something, and we want to present it to them in a really good way. How do we do that? So that's something that it's a lunch and learn, but it could potentially turn into a video. But so many other artists have done it, so I don't know. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I personally wanted to do a lot of sort of informational talks like that. Like this format of like streaming was literally what I wanted to do internally to the corporate because I found a lot of value in what I know and what I do,
hmm
and if I share, we can only grow together was my approach. But yet, there was like very little interest, and I feel people were a bit more stagnated. In a way that they're not interested in learning or they were not as self-driven, is what I want to
I
say.
think I think that tends to happen with larger firms. I don't know how big your firm was, but anything over 100 people, I feel like that tends to start to happen where you'll have a core group of maybe 10 people who are interested in any kind of lunch and learn ArcViz, and then the rest of the people who are there are just there to get their CEU credit and move on.
Not even
So
sometimes like I'm gonna get
yeah,
my own lunch.
I'm getting my free lunch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I felt that way even because working for some small companies, I it was just really hard to find that amount of interest. Like I consider myself as very self-driven in a way. Like I always want to learn and pick up on, and I connect with people who are self-driven and want
hmm
to learn more, like yourself there. So I wanted to have that sort of core group of keep on learning together, but it was impossible to have that in a 100 people or so setup. So I
yeah,
felt like, okay, well, if I open it up to YouTube where there's infinite amount of people, then can I find some people who may be interested in is basically the very first approach. I was frustrated with my current setup
interesting.
of my network to share what I have to say or share what I know or even learn from people like you. I want to connect and have interesting guests or somebody who's also having a lot of experience. I want to hear from them. Like I want to learn about other people's skill sets and what they have to say. But it was really hard to find. Therefore, I started YouTube as like a more of a community in a way. So I produce something and then I want to gather something in the comment or have an interesting conversation like this so that I
Yep.
talk to someone because they already know me somehow, right? Because
Yeah.
I show my face in my videos and I go to conferences, I try to network. So this was sort of my groundwork to set up a community or network of people, let myself known out there, and then meet all sorts of interesting people. I learned from my channel too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely some nuggets of gold in this one for sure. So you wanted to talk a little bit about tech too tonight. I know we're getting a little late, so we started a little bit late too, but I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. What's on your mind as far as tech is concerned lately?
Um, well, we can either cover the tech relating to the channel, like running a YouTube
Okay.
channel, or we can talk about some laptops or desktop. That's such a bigger topic. we can
Yeah.
we can go
Yeah.
days about it.
Well, I think the one thing that is, I don't know if anybody's experiencing it right now, is the tech shortage is something that we felt internally as an office. I
Oh,
don't know about you guys, but Marcus, my intern, he is turning into a really great artist, but we've been struggling because he's got a little GTX 1060 in his computer, and it's worked, but anything bigger than a few small scenes, it's just been difficult. And you can't touch a 3070 for under what, like $1,000 now, $1,500. It's absurd. So I managed to luck out. I got him a 3070 last week. It was a miracle. um if anybody is paying attention to this, keep an eye on Woot, WOOT, woot.com. What we did in the office, and
login.
huh?
I'm gonna log in. Whatever that
What do you
is.
mean? Oh,
Woot.
Woot. So
Uh-huh.
Woot, I've been following Woot since college. It used to be like one deal each day. They were like the original fire sale kind of thing. It's mostly crap. It's mostly like closeout crap. But every once in a while they have a deal, like a
Wow.
real deal. They had a bunch of MSI computers go up. One of them had a 3090 in it. I did not get the 3090, and the 3080 went really quick too. But when I woke up at about 6 a.m., I was brushing my teeth, checking my phone, and I saw this computer come up. It had a 3070 with 32 gigs of RAM. It was a 10700K with a 2 terabyte M.2. It was a great computer. It was a little over $1,800 with the GPU included, as a refurbished computer. So with the refurbished, like the factory refurbished computers, usually what happens is it goes to somebody's house. 9 times out of 10, they boot it up. They've never booted up a computer before, and it doesn't work. They send it back. It's either a RAM stick that's not slotted properly, the GPU came loose,
Or
a
didn't turn
cable
on the
isn't
power supply.
exactly. So they end up sending it back, and they get a replacement. Well, in this instance, it was like a $2,300 computer marked down to $1,800. I yanked that card, swapped it out for the 1060, put it back up online. I didn't ask for like a big markup because everybody's scalping these things at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked for a fair price for the computer, and I got a 3070 for a little under MSRP. So there are deals out there to be had. You just got to kind of keep an eye out. But God, it is miserable trying to get computer parts these
So
days.
I hear that you are just running desktops. Are you utilizing any of the laptop in your company?
We have one mobile workstation, which is pretty much mine at this point. It's an Asus ROG Strix um, Zephyrus, I think. I don't
Is it
remember.
Strix or Zephyrus? I think it's
I
one or the
can't
other.
remember the difference. I think it might be just Strix. I can't remember at this point.
Strix is
Um,
more like balls to the
Gamery.
walls gamery thing.
Like it's a GTX 1060. I bought it a few years back for a conference. I was like, okay, I'm going to this conference. I need a laptop that can run VR. So I grabbed that off the shelf at a Best Buy, and it's been a great computer. I got no qualms. But yeah, that's my only mobile workstation. I
Other
try
than
and
that, it's all desktop for all
it's
of
all
your.
desktops.
Okay.
Yep. It's almost cheaper to just so we have um I've got my computer at home and I've got a bunch of computers at the office. And when I say a bunch of computers, there's three guys and we have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 machines. And a server. Because we've got a render farm that I've slowly built out for V-Ray renderings that we never use anymore. So I probably should part those out and sell them and make a killing, because the market is so hot for PCs.
Threadrippers and all the
Yep.
AMD
Yeah,
ones.
there are, I've got a 2970, a 2990, and then a pair of 1950Xs. So
Wow.
all in 200-ish cores.
Wow.
Yeah. Or 200-ish threads.
But
But
now
yeah,
you're hunting for a GPU, not the CPU.
man, I can't find it. Well, CPUs are hard to get too.
Right, but you got enough of it,
CPUs.
it seems like.
Yeah, yeah. And then each of those machines have a 1660. So, they're reasonable machines, but man, I can't find like high because with a lot of the work that we do in Enscape even, we're we're cracking the 8 and 10 gig limit every day. About a year ago, I upgraded to a Titan, an RTX Titan, because I needed the 24 gigs of VRAM on that thing to get projects out the door. It was the best investment I've ever made,
Quadro?
and I don't have,
Wait.
man, I'm not made of money. Come on.
Okay, let's jump on to the next one. I just wanted to throw it out there.
So, but yeah, it's the VRAM is everything. The ver the that 24 gigs on the 3090 and the RTX Titan, it makes a difference. So,
I wanted to discuss a few things. So my own setup is like you said, I have desktops. I have one at home. I have one at work. So I jump between, and whenever I need to
mhm,
do little tasks in between, I rely on a laptop. For me, it always worked out to have one designated desktop to do most of amount of work, and then a little tiny, teeny laptop to answer emails or do light tasks.
Yep.
I never found myself needing to invest so much on a mobile workstation. I always found that it's not right for the purpose. I cannot find myself ever buying a 17-inch gaming laptop to do my tasks, my tasks that I do.
Yeah.
I just couldn't
When
find justification in that.
when did you graduate? When did you finish school?
2012.
2012. Okay, I graduated in 2009. So when we were kind of in school, they didn't really, you could have a desktop or you could have a laptop. The laptops were never as good as desktops, and just like today, they're never quite as good as a desktop. But the reality of it is now our internet connection is so much better that you don't necessarily have to have a powerful laptop as
But
long as
people
you've got an
don't
internet
have
connection.
that. Like, I don't think people have infrastructure to support that ever.
It depends on where you are, but I'll tell you what, I remote into my computers at work all the time
You do. I do.
from my laptop.
But not the students,
But
not the hopeless students.
well, yeah, yeah. But I mean, they potentially could if you get like a Chromebook, like $150 Chromebook, and you set up Google Remote Desktop on your beefy supercomputer in your dorm room. That's how I work 90% of the time. I've got this massive gaming workstation next to me right now that I hardly utilize because most of the time I'm kicking open Google Remote Desktop and logging into the office and working there from my home office here. Um, this thing is way overbuilt. I built it during the pandemic because it's a hobby. It's water cooled, custom loop, the full 9 yards. It glows. My daughter's coming in here all the time yelling she wants to see the rainbows on my computer. Um, you know, it's
Serves a
unicorn
purpose.
barf,
It's,
but it's I've got a pair of 1080 Ti's in it that just crank. This thing is a beast, and I hardly use it. I use it for YouTube now.
then, so here's my question. If you were a student right now, doing your last year of school study, in year 2021 already, but 2021, there's no pandemic. You're regularly attending your class, doing similar tasks that you've done in school. Would you invest in a laptop or would you invest in a desktop?
If you asked me a year ago, I would say invest in a desktop and buy a crappy little laptop. Right now, buy a laptop. Buy a laptop
What
with a
spec would
good
you say?
GPU.
What is a good
Um,
a GPU for you?
Anything 20 series 2070 would be usable, like really useful or up. So 2070, 3060 to 3080. I don't think they make a 3090 laptop. Um,
Do
but
you think 2070 may be over student purpose?
what do you mean?
I
Like it's
feel
overkill?
I personally feel that 2070 might be over budget for student purpose. Is at least
Maybe.
it's somewhere
Maybe.
between there, but I
I
feel
mean, you could probably get
2060,
away with a
2070.
2060. I say 2070 only because it's got more RAM.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the VRAM makes a big difference when you're dealing with Revit files and you're trying to render.
Yeah, but you're a student.
Well, I mean, you're already spending piles of money on your tuition anyways. At least, spend something on your laptop.
If it is 3060, I think on a 30 series card, I think 3060 will suffice for most of
Yeah, I
student
think the
purpose stuff.
3060s are 8 gig now.
It is higher than 2060, I think.
I think it's an 8 gig. I think the 3060s are 8 gig. As long as you've got that VRAM, that sweet, sweet VRAM. Um,
But I do want to argue with you.
yeah,
The a lot of times, softwares like Inkscape is so well optimized that you don't get to utilize as much. Like if you're running like Unreal and the ones that really dump the amount of VRAM required for running it, yes, and there's like certain amount of bottleneck that hit on Lumion, but something like Enscape, which is very well optimized in terms of VRAM, you don't need it
You're
as
right.
much.
You're right, but here's the caveat. With desktop, I would say go with the 3060 or the 2060 because you can upgrade later on. With a laptop, you can't upgrade the GPU. So get the best GPU you can get in that model that you can afford. Don't, go into debt over this, but the best GPU that you can afford to do the work that you need to do. A 2060 or a 3060 will probably do the job. If you can afford a 3070, do it. If you want like Mac Daddy, go for the 3080, 2080 Ti, whatever it is, because you won't run into bottlenecks with workload on a lot of those cards. Whereas I made the mistake as a college student of buying a desktop that I didn't understand what I was buying. It was a constant problem. It wouldn't run Revit. It was because it was a slow CPU. I didn't understand what
Why?
I was buying.
Okay,
I spent a lot of
here
money on something that didn't work.
Sophie is a trooper for staying with us all
Oh, she's still
throughout.
there?
Yeah, with
Sophie, you're a hero.
yeah, I know. But she is a student.
Hmm.
She asked us a question before, and here she just chatted saying, as a student, I went with a 2060 and not 2070 mobile because comparing the benchmarks, I didn't think it was worth the increase in price. And not only the price,
That's a valid reason.
I also think because it is laptop, it hogs so much power in terms of battery life as well. The trade-off, I don't think form factor matters on between 2060
No,
2070, but
no.
for amount of power it draws, I feel like there's still a bit of benefit because 2060 is somewhat better optimized in terms of power draw.
Slightly. But I mean, the 2060 will absolutely be plenty useful. I always see, so
If you had
I did.
2060 in your days, can you
Oh
imagine?
man. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, the next time we do this, I'll bring in my because I still have a lot of my GPUs that I saved.
I
I'll
don't
bring
have
in an
any.
old
I
like
don't have any.
FX. I'll bring an old FX card and show you what we used to work on, guys. Um, so one of the big things with having 2060 versus 2070 versus 2080, 3080, whatever, it's all about what you're doing and how far you push it. Um, I found in my experience, you know, if you can afford a little bit more, buy a little bit more because you're going to end up using it. It's not a matter of, as an artist, as a designer, you're not going to ever not use it. You're always going to push the limit of the equipment, no matter what. So if you've got a 1060, you're going to find a point where you're like, I don't have enough oomph to get me over the finish line of this project because you've put as much as the 1060 can handle and then you can't handle anymore. So it doesn't matter what you put into the machine or what kind of specs you have, you're always going to push it that much further. And it's been that way for everything that I've seen. I mean, I crash my Titan on a regular basis now because I just throw everything at it. I'm like, oh, it can handle it, and then it can't. So now I start looking at, well, can I afford a Quadro? No.
No, no,
No,
no.
Ted, you cannot.
And don't believe other people that you need to get at Quadro. That's another conversation for another day. But Tony is saying there's also no perfect computer. Um,
He's absolutely right.
and I said definitely not. But that's why you gotta get the desktop in case you change your mind.
Eh, Not that you can find parts for it right now.
Right, right. But
Oh, it's so painful.
here's what I did though. So my first 2 years, I've had a I spent about 2 grand of my part-time job that I got the first time, and all of what I earned went straight in to 2 grand. Dell XPS 13-inch laptop. That was like the cutting edge. I topped off
Mm-hmm.
all the custom parts that I can put in that tiny poor little thing, and it ended up overheating all the time. And I believe it had like a discrete graphics card MX something. I don't remember the
Mm-hmm.
number, but I believe it
So
was 400 series MX card. And
I'm sorry.
yeah, and I know it was notorious for overheating, and that's how it was. And I always had to run like heating a cooling pad to cool it off. And later on my third year, I got this janky express card setup where I can actually hook up a there's a video about it that I made, but there's a photo of it. Basically, there's a PSU hanging out behind the monitor, and there are these little PCBs that are stuck on the monitor, and you have a little switch, and there's a graphics card that is basically hanging about. It was RT 460 NVIDIA.
So it was like a really, really early external GPU setup.
Exactly. And I ran that because I couldn't run StarCraft 2. Uh, gaming is another topic
Priorities.
we're going to, but because I don't need graphics card in architecture at that time,
Mm-hmm.
so all I needed was CPU, and it was fine.
Yeah.
So that time I upgraded my GPU for that reason, but yeah, and since then, on my later third year, I purchased a desktop from Dell again, um, XPS, and
I'm gonna just stop you really quickly. Please don't ever buy any more Dell products.
well, sorry, I have a laptop. I still do.
Oh man.
But brand aside, I bought a desktop that had a really bad GPU
Mm,
and a good CPU, and other parts are okay, so that I can actually swap parts out. So that's where I started
yeah.
off modifying parts to my computer and understood the benefit of being able to upgrade and swap out. And for the longest time, I used the parts out of that machine. So like I sold off the existing AMD graphics card that was really poor on that card, and then swapped out PSU, and then put that 460 in there, and then later that became my main machine. I carried that to London after upgrading it to better graphics card. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like 1050 Ti at the time, and then later I upgraded to better card, and it became my main machine for the
Was that
longest
that
time.
little backpack machine that you talked about for a
That
while there?
was right after that XPS.
Okay.
So
I
basically I
remember seeing that video.
transferred that the parts out of that XPS into that backpackable, and there are a few photos in that video where I talk about my old machine, and that's when I talk about all of my old setup. But my whole point of going back in my memory lane was because a little bit of investment in a laptop, realizing that you can actually get better value out of desktop. So I kind of like combined in my student years, and that
Mm-hmm.
still is true. So I fill
Oh
in the
yeah.
gaps with laptops that are not necessarily most performing, but then I do most of my desktop. And if I change my mind, as Tony says, then I just swap out parts, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. If you can kind of bridge that gap and find a really good like low profile case and build a small like powerful like mobile system, that is absolutely the best way to go if you can do it. Problem is when you start getting small it gets expensive again.
There's a
So
ITX tax.
yeah, the ITX tax. I've never done a low profile system. I want to. I just haven't really I've never really dedicated enough time to it. But there are some really beautiful little setups out there. Um,
There's
but yeah, I
something
mean,
about them. And it's just
the reality of it is though, to go back to your question about laptop versus desktop for students, I mean, for students, when you're traveling, everything, the reason I suggest laptops right now is just because of the GPU silicon shortage across the board.
Absolutely.
Everything's extremely expensive. So, on a side note, I'm currently trying to buy a car, and cars are insanely priced right now. There's just no, everything is at a premium because everything is
Supply and
um,
demand.
so, yep, everything is short because no one's produced anything for the past year. So it's been difficult across the board. So if you can hold off and wait to buy a laptop or a desktop, do it. If you can hold off and wait to buy a GPU, don't give in to the scalpers. There are deals out there to be had. I mean, I found a 3070 from MSI that is under MSRP. So you can do it if you happen to have the wherewithal to just kind of keep an eye out. But as far as laptops, one more time, whatever you get, typically you'll be happy with. Um, and don't overthink it. Think about it, but don't overthink it because you can get real nitpicky and start
There's no
just
perfect
splitting
computer
hairs.
anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Try and find something. The reason I said don't buy Dell is because A, they come with tons of bloatware. B, they tend to skimp on the important things like power supplies and hard drives and things like that. They really cheap out on certain things. Not to knock Dell, but any of the larger companies tend to do that, and they because they're trying to make the most profit off of a very low profit item. Because just a kind of big broad picture, none of these things have a very large profit margin. The way they make money is in volume. So the more units they sell, the more money they make. But yeah, it just stay away from anything that has a lot of bloatware in it. And if you don't know what bloatware is, it's the crap that a company sticks on a computer that you don't need, like the random software that you've never heard of that you don't want. And get something that fits for your workflow. If you're doing a lot of V-Ray and you're a CPU type of user, uh, find something with a lot of cores. If you're, a Redshift, Octane, um, you know, GPU based rendering person, get something with a killer GPU. But know that
Do
your
you
VRAM is going to be important.
understanding current market and projecting for next 2 3 years who are going to be for students who are going to be graduating, do you think it's right time to invest in a CPU bound type of
Right
task?
now, the I mean, I don't want to make a prediction like that.
But I,
That's
I don't think so. I personally don't
I don't
think.
I don't either. I
Right.
think
So I
everything's
think
going
you got to look
GPU,
at GPU when you're buying currently at a laptop, because laptops,
but
I'm assuming 2 3 maybe 4 years tops, and
yeah,
for that I feel that you're going to be needing a lot of more GPU resources than CPU bound tasks.
yeah. Um and with the CPU versus GPU kind of thing, I think we'll see a paradigm shift in the next probably 3 to 5 years where programs are going to go more GPU versus CPU. But I mean, any of the CAD based applications are they're so tied to CPU architecture. Like SketchUp is a single threaded application and will always be a single threaded application because of how it's built and how it's designed and the history behind it. Um, I mean, they
But
only,
which also means that anything beyond six cores on at least on a laptop setup
yeah,
is
you don't need
it's
more than
pro
six.
right. So
Yeah,
it is not to say dismiss that multi-cores are
But
necessary,
don't
but
so the thing with the cores, don't forget that while SketchUp is single core, so is Revit, so is Rhino, so is any of the other applications. So if you want to run all those applications at the same time, the more cores you have, the better. So if you're planning on running Photoshop and SketchUp and Revit and Rhino and all at the same time,
not necessarily. I have to disagree on that because for laptops, there is a bottleneck in
oh,
terms of
well, yeah.
amount of things that you can run and amount of heat it can manage and
Yes.
amount of power that it can draw from either battery or out of wall because of the power supply limitation. It's a completely different setup if it
Yes.
is desktop. But on a
Yes.
laptop, I feel like uh, after a certain sort of balance amount of cores, let's say uh, 6, then you start to go overboard where you're not as efficient. You
Yeah,
might be
and then on
slightly
top of
faster at
that,
moments, but
you're also limited by how much RAM you can have in a laptop. I think maxing a laptop out, you'll get 64 gigs of RAM. Um, so I mean, there are a lot of factors. I push all of my equipment way further than it probably needs to be pushed on a regular basis. So I look for how many cores, how much headroom do I have for my RAM? Like most of my machines are between 64 and 128 gigs of RAM.
right. But you are running desktop where you're not
Exactly.
bounded by power limit or heat output
Exactly. Oh, well, not necessarily, because
entirely,
I
but yeah.
it's gotten hot.
Yeah,
They get hot.
but you still need to manage, but it's not as limiting as a laptop where you're
Yes,
maxing out at a
100%.
250 watt and then
Mm-hmm.
you're bounded into this sort of 1 inch at
Yep.
most. The most chunkiest laptop is still
Yeah.
like 1 inch
Yeah.
thick. So,
But again, like we were talking about, I think right now, because of the market the way it is, with how expensive graphics cards are, I think the best option for anybody looking right now is probably a
right now,
laptop
absolutely.
right now. And
Because it doesn't go for the
yeah,
scalper price or
yeah,
there's better availability in that
yeah.
side.
Only just barely it's better. But and then in a year from now, I have a feeling it's gonna just be flipped on its head. So well, I'm hoping that this is gonna sound terrible, but I'm hoping there's a crash in the Bitcoin and the crypto market so that we get on the gaming ArcViz side of things a glut of GPU, CPU equipment on the market for real cheap.
There was a little bit of that like
Yeah,
two
it's
years
still going
ago.
down.
I bought my 1080 when it was at high price because of no supply, and I managed to get one, and then it surely crashed afterwards. Therefore, it was all available all again. But we'll
Yep.
see. It's happening at much sort of greater magnitude at the
Oof.
moment, but we'll see how it goes. It's very late your time, so we're gonna have
It
to
is.
wrap it
Well,
up.
I'm just checking. I'm just taking a look at where everything is in the crypto market, and Bitcoin's down to 40,000. Oof. Maybe we'll get some GPUs sooner rather than later.
We'll see. We'll be hopeful, and all it can do is benefit us when that comes down.
Hmm.
So, um, we'll be happy to discuss this all over again because it is such a fun topic. We can go
Yep.
on and geek out about what we think, what we rather agree or not agree. But hardware and tech is
Maybe
high
one day
interest
we'll
for
have a
me.
conversation about server builds. Very exciting.
Oh, you're gonna have to do most of the talking. I know very little, but either way, I would be happy to. I would also be happy to cover some YouTube tech, if anything, like camera or sound or lighting type of thing. Those are the things that you have to research when you're starting up a channel, just to kind of put a closure on the topic of YouTube, which I would be happy to answer for if you need some insights in that. And also, there are other few topics that we want to discuss just to geek out about AEC. So hopefully next time we won't have as much technical difficulty. And given that you're available, would you be willing to hop on next week as well? Or
I don't know about next week. I might have to skip next week, but we'll make this more regular thing.
awesome. All
All
right.
right?
Yeah, we'll keep talking. And well, Ted, thank you so much for joining again. And I know a few troopers out there who was watching all along. I know Tony was and Sophie was. So thank you so much for keeping us somewhat entertained with you guys
Yep.
on board, and
Thanks,
through
guys.
the technical difficulty. And we just love talking. So we'll continue to do that when more chances given. And hopefully we'll see you again. And I am going to run outro and see you goodbye.
Have a good night.
Good night.